Today we are looking at Batman Vengeance. Released on October 15th, 2001, the game saw a good amount of acclaim to stats for how it is pretty much based on the animated TV show, for the most part. Asterisk air quotes here. You get the idea of what they were going for here, because they looked at the animated TV show, they saw how well it was doing, they decided to do something based off that, but a lot of these things didn't really mold over very well, and there were some problems that will become very apparent very soon. Now, let's get into what this game actually is about story-wise. Yes, it is based on the television series, but it is based on this whole storyline where the Joker appears to have disappeared. They kind of frame it off as a way to make it look like he fell to his death, but you don't really see anything happen to him. He just kind of disappears, but that things are still going on. Throughout the story, you run into characters like Mr. Freeze, Poison Ivy, obviously Harley's there, and it's just this whole coherent story of Joker's obviously doing something in the background. He's not gone. There's a lot of hints to this throughout the entire story for the game, which, and another point of this game is weirdly short. In fact, you can actually 100% the game in under 3 hours. So that's a bit strange that they kind of gave you this whole coherent story that has to do with the TV show, but there's just a weird lack of anything to do. The levels are pretty straightforward and very linear. I found myself multiple times getting through full level sections, fighting bosses, and just looking over and being like, oh hey, it's been 30 minutes. It just feels odd. I'm not really sure why they chose to structure it that way. I guess maybe just to give you a single file story that you just play through, finish in one go, and then that's it. But the fact that when this game released, and I'm pretty sure the time of release is a $30 game, so that makes sense because they knew there wasn't a huge price point there for it. There is a weird lack of content there, and it shows. Even still, the game has its ups and a lot of downs, but there's ups there. One of the things I do enjoy is the massive variety of tools and items you get to use throughout the game. From items like flash bombs, batarangs, your grappling hook. I like that they give you bat cuffs for arresting people, but you have a certain amount of them, so you kind of actually have to kind of think about the characters you arrest that are on the ground, because otherwise after a certain amount of time they will just get back up and be a problem again. So it makes you actually think about who you're dealing with, especially if you're in an area where you can't just immediately get out of. You have to do other stuff there. It comes down to a level of pre-planned kind of figuring things out. If you find someone that's kind of alone out in the middle of nowhere, you don't really need to cuff them. You kind of just take them down and continue on, because you're probably not going to come back and have to deal with them again. So that's a nice little change up there. I do like the items. I like how they actually do this nice change of variety of things. The one big problem for me, though, is that there's these weird, clunky controls to this. And you will see it a lot in the gameplay you're viewing here. Whenever I'm using my grappling hook or batarangs, I just kind of skip over the object I'm aiming at, because you can't really be that precise with it. It's kind of the reticule is just pretty massive, and thus you just need to be somewhere in that zone to hit, and it just feels bad. If the controls were more tighter and more well thought out and done, this would be a more smooth, well done experience. But having it this way makes it feel very clunky and awkward, and that's not really fun gameplay done at that point. Yes, you have your moments where it's just good fun and you have everything figured out and you know what to do, but otherwise there's these weird moments where things just don't work well and it feels bad. One of the things about this game that actually confuses me most of all is, why are there so many cutscenes? There's a weird amount of cutscenes, and I'm not really sure who thought this was a good idea. I've had moments where I would complete something, walk 5 feet, a legitimate maybe 20 seconds, and then another cutscene pops up. To the point that I'm why did they stop a cutscene instead of just didn't segue into something like what why is this he I don't even know. I get it. They want to give you as much gameplay as possible and more time to spend with playing as Batman, but like, what? Why was that a choice? Who thought this was a good idea? I don't know, guys. I don't know. I don't know. One thing I do enjoy though is just the physical hand-to-hand combat between like you're punching, you're kicking, and you're doing your special moves and jumping in the air and doing mid-air attacks or like your gliding attacks. It's really well designed and very well thought out, though I have come across a few bugs, and well, they're comical. I've had moments where blocking turned off, and thus I had to sit there and just wait for the enemy to take me out. Yeah, that's a problem. No. No. I'm gonna try to run away. Yeah, take that. Riveting gameplay here. Please. Okay, we're in the clear. Let's go. Let's run. Another thing I really enjoy about this game is that you get to do flying and driving related combat shenanigans. You get to fly around the Batwing and you get to drive around the Batmobile. Are the controls great? Well, with the rolling theme with the rest of the game, not really. They kind of handle very terribly. And just kind of a feel bad. And a lot of the missions where you have to use them is kind of super straightforward, so you just get it done and then you never really have to care about them again. So it's like, oh, okay. Why was this here? It kind of feels like they just shoehorned it in just to give the game extra content. But like, why? When you could beat the game in 3 hours. I don't know why this was a conscious choice. It was a weird conscious choice. Now, let's just break this down into the pros and cons at this point. Pros, obviously the gameplay is quite fun. It's very linear and straightforward. Beating up bad guys is fun. The boss fights are very well thought out. Yeah, at times they feel pretty straightforward and simple, but you get a good rhythm to them, and they're just fun and straightforward. And you have a good time with pretty much every boss fight in this game. So I have no complaints there. I think they did a wonderful idea with the story structuring, and yet the fact that they did a TV show tie-in video game, and yet it has so much to do with the TV show. They even brought in the original cast of voice actors. It's fantastic. There's so many games from this generation where they did tie-ins, and yet they didn't have the original voice actors, and that always felt weird to me. I'm like, what was the point if we weren't going to use the original voice actors? That is a huge plus. It definitely carries this game, and it definitely helps its rating overall. It's a fantastic choice. I think the score for this game is perfect as well. They did everything right, because it feels like Batman. It feels like you're watching the TV show. It's just the execution. Well, let's get into the cons. And the cons, this game, it has horrible controls. You would think they would feel this out better and make the controls more tight and more thought out and more well done overall, but they just didn't. It feels like a cash grab in a sad way, but also, yeah, there was effort and time put into this, but it's that weird thing where it's a game that's developed by Ubisoft, and this time period, Ubisoft was just churning out games, and I keep running into the problem of seeing Ubisoft games, and they're just not great, and like one category that just dooms the game. And having a game that's based off an IP that has really bad controls isn't great for that IP, and it just turns into a big feel bad moment. I mean, they gave it a good try, and I'll give them that, but like, the controls are just horrible, and it ruins the gameplay, it ruins the whole experience, and that's not fun. I mean, at least this game got a lot of ports, but also some of the ports aren't great. It got PS2, GameCube, it got Xbox, but then it got Game Boy Advance and PC. I guess the PC port came out a year later. It didn't actually fix anything besides make it better looking graphically, which is who cares about graphics when the game still handles horribly? Like, what was the point? It just, I don't know what Ubisoft was doing with this. It had great execution, it has a great story, everything would have been peachy fine, but then they just kind of dropped the ball with the handling, and then it just kind of fell apart here and there. When I get down to my final points of how I feel about this game, I'm giving this a 7 out of 10 fins. And it's only because not only did they bring back the original voice actors, but the score for this game is fantastic. It feels like a good, genuine Batman experience when you're not playing the game, which is weird to say, but like, it's kind of true. This game really stands out as almost something that you want to have a playthrough of, just to have the memories to say that you played for this game, but you probably don't want to ever play this game again. And if you do, why? What's bringing you back to it? This game is a good, solid one-time playthrough. And for that, yeah, it's getting a 7 out of 10 fins. That's a review, guys. It's Batman Vengeance. It tried its best. But at the end of the day, I have to give it a 7. If honestly, if it was lacking on the score or even the voice acting, this game could easily be a 4 out of 10 fins. But because it has those, and it carries it very well, the fact that this feels like Batman, there's no debate, it feels like Batman, it holds the score. That, guys, is a review. Until next time, I love you guys. Bye!